one Democrat, and you discuss the issues that matter in today's local, state, national, and global politics. Hosted by Steve Hickson with co-hosts John Stanberry and Franklin Chansey. This is Backfire.
Hey, welcome to another day right here at Backfire. This morning we have John Stanberry and Daniel Brantley with us. Franklin, I think he had it.
John?
Yeah, John. Yes. Daniel's going to fill in for Franklin today, John. But anyway, John was tied up this morning, so...
We're late.
Right, yeah.
That's his nice way of saying I was late.
Yeah.
He's being kind.
Who?
You're being kind to me saying I was tied up. I was just late.
I think I was talking about...
Franklin's tied up. Okay.
I think you're feeling guilty, I think.
I'm not feeling guilty. I'm being honest. I was late.
Franklin is severely tied up, and John was late.
Oh, I tell you, what was it Franklin sent me? He said he couldn't be here this morning, but he'd let me explain Trump.
You and I could explain Trump.
Well, let's explain him. Go ahead.
Will you start?
Give me your side.
Well, I mean, the big thing for me is why is anybody surprised? I mean, we knew this is how Trump was. We knew this is what his personality was. It's interesting to me, for example, Anderson Cooper kept pushing him to say, well, have you ever treated a woman like that? Have you ever treated a woman like that? And so one of the things that I was going to ask Franklin is do you think that's significant? Is there a difference between if he had gone ahead and treated someone like that? Because the point here is Bill Clinton did treat women like that. And everybody says, well, Bill's not running. You're right, Bill's not running, but Hillary is. And Hillary's the one that then identified those women and attacked them and victimized them again. So I'm not happy with either one of these. For me, the big takeaway from this is how horrible the press has become. Because this recording was 11 years ago. So it's been in the tank somewhere for 11 years. Well, when Megyn Kelly asked the question at the first debate over a year ago, that probably was the most newsworthy time for this recording to surface. So why didn't it surface back then? Well, it didn't surface because the news media was in bed with the Clinton campaign, and they thought Donald Trump was going to be the easiest one to throw these bombshells out on. And so they protected Clinton and they protected Trump during the primaries. And now they've dumped it out.
What are these Republicans that are against Trump protecting?
Well, they're protecting the majority because here's the deal. If Hillary wins...
They're worried about Congress and Senate.
Yes, they're worried about Congress. And you should be too. I mean, and to be honest, whether you personally would have wanted Paul... for example, Paul Ryan. Paul Ryan didn't unendorse Trump. He just said, look, I've got to focus on keeping the Congress. And if Trump's not able to pull this across the finish line and Hillary wins, you better hope Paul Ryan is successful at holding the Congress. Because if not...
I don't think Paul Ryan... I think he needs to resign.
Well, see, Steve, I'll be honest with you. I just find stuff like that from the Trump people, and especially from Trump himself.
I'm going to tell you something, John. All in. It needs to be all in.
All right, let me ask you a question, Steve. So you're in a boat, and the boat has a hole in it.
Yeah.
And you're mad at Paul Ryan for not bailing the water out fast enough. So your solution...
I throw him out.
No, your solution is to chunk a bigger hole in the bottom of the boat.
No, I throw him out.
Because the boat's going to sink either way.
It won't sink as fast without him.
Paul Ryan has a job to try and protect the majority in Congress. And one of the here's what's so disjointed about... But to be honest, some of your comments, and certainly Mr. Trump's comments, one of your arguments for voting for Mr. Trump, and I think it's completely valid, is the Supreme Court and the damage that Hillary Clinton will be able to do to the Supreme Court. Well, if you hold Congress, we could mitigate some of that damage. So on the one hand, you're using the damage that Hillary could do. On the other hand, you're blaming Paul Ryan for trying to limit the damage she can do. Paul's got he is responsible for Congress. Ultimately, the Speaker of the House is responsible for trying to maintain control of the House.
So that doesn't matter about the presidential election.
Well, first off, he didn't unendorse Trump.
Well,
he said he can't waste his time.
He said he didn't take any endorsement back. He just said, look, I've got to focus on...
John, he'd been better off not saying anything.
Well, someone
did he
else,
say?
11 years ago, someone else would have been better off not saying anything.
Well, 11 years ago he didn't, but you know what? He said he was sorry for it. And you got this
But here's your
got this media that's just,
Absolutely.
I'm telling you, they won't stop.
You're right.
There's no air
You're right.
in the jug.
And where have you heard that before? Oh, from me over the last year.
Yeah.
All during the campaign. I said it on this radio show. I said, look, these media people have stories in the can for Donald Trump. And in November, October, September, they will dump these out. I said that a year ago. Now, and so what's kind of frustrating for people like me is now all of a sudden, just like I said, we're the bad guy because we were right about what was going to happen.
It's Hillary perfect.
No, she's horrible.
What, is anybody
You're
talking
missing
about
the
her?
point.
No, I'm not missing
No, I
the
agree
point.
with you, but
I'm not missing the point.
you are
John.
missing one of the
They're not
points.
talking about
You're right,
Hillary.
but I told you that's what they do. I told you a year ago that's what they do.
How's anybody ever going to beat the damn system?
Well, one, there are plenty of people that could have beat him because they didn't have as many.
Give me one.
Well, look, I didn't like Kasich hardly at all. But Kasich probably could have beat her pretty easily because he's much more liberal. That's why I didn't like him. Now, for example, I didn't support Rubio. Rubio probably could have beat her because he didn't have this baggage. Our point wasn't that we didn't like Trump, that we didn't like what Trump was saying. Our point was the baggage.
But can I say something before we go too far?
Sure.
I still think Trump's going to beat her butt.
I hope you're right, and I'm working for it, and I'm arguing against Hillary. But he is making it damned hard.
Well, you know what? Nobody's perfect.
Well, look.
Nobody's
to
perfect.
say nobody's
and
perfect is...
And he said he was sorry.
All right, let me ask you a question.
Let me say something else. Out of his entire life, that's the only thing they've dug up.
Look, Steve, I'm not disagreeing with you about any of that. That's not my point. Even if you don't like what Paul Ryan said, what would be more productive for Mr. Trump? To be hammering on Hillary or to be hammering on Paul Ryan? What helps propel him across the finish line better?
Well, let me say something. If you don't have the support of your own party, should you not create your own party?
Well, good luck with that.
Good
luck with that.
No,
I mean, that is such a misguided, out of place
I think in the
position.
future there is a Trump party.
There is no future if he doesn't win.
Let me tell you
there
something.
is no future.
No, let me tell you something, John. The Trump party is here to stay. There's no
it's
Republican
not. No, you don't
party
understand,
left.
Steve.
There's no Republican party
Here's
left.
what's so hard, Steve. You're selling this idea of how disastrous Hillary will be.
I'm telling you, the Republican Party is history after this election.
No,
whether Trump wins or loses.
Any opposition to the social progressive movement is history. That's what I'm telling you. And if you think that Trump's going to be able to put together some alternative, there is no alternative.
I'm telling you, whether he wins or loses, the Republican Party is history over the way they've acted. They don't know how to stick together and be a team.
Steve.
They don't know how to do it.
This is real simple. You have to manage the news cycles. And he already has huge strikes against him with the news people. And so if he comes out and he goes on a rant.
Wait
a minute. Let me
You
finish.
don't think they would have You don't think they would have gone psycho on anybody that's in there?
Yes, but you don't pour fuel on the fire. They want the Republican Party divided. So if he simply comes out and says, look, I appreciate any help Paul Ryan can give me, and I know he's got to protect the majority in Congress, and we need a Republican Congress, that's the end of the story. But he doesn't do that. He comes out and he attacks Paul Ryan. And all that does is blow the story up. It allows the news people to have an excuse to not cover the fact that Hillary is absolutely horrible, to not cover the fact that we now have a smoking gun in the State Department, where we actually had them segregating requests for help at the State Department into Friends of Bill column and non-Friends of Bill column. We actually have a quid pro quo, and that's not getting covered because Trump's not focused on it.
Well, I'm just going to tell you, things like Haslam coming out.
I wasn't surprised by that at all. Haslam's not a particularly conservative Republican.
One Republican and one Democrat. Backfire.
Hillary is such a good moral and ethical choice.
No, she's absolutely horrible. And the killing thing for me is, for example, Monday on The View, Joy Behar called Bill's victims tramps. Now, can you imagine if a Republican had called a Democrat woman a tramp, much less the victim of a sexual assault, a tramp? But Hollywood's okay with
I'm
that.
just telling you.
Hollywood's okay with all of the lyrics in the rap music.
Our country's under siege right now.
Absolutely.
It's under siege.
But I disagree with you from the standpoint of there will be no Republican Party. I'm not sure there'll be a free country if we don't win this. Because Hillary, I mean, you've got her in her speeches that have now come to light from Wall Street advocating for open borders. Folks, think about it. That's not immigration reform. She said open borders. That means anybody in the world can walk into our country at any time.
Folks, if you haven't voted, be sure to go vote.
I feel like I should say something on behalf of Franklin.
Go ahead. John.
I've been racking my brain what it would be. John, you know that open borders would never happen. Come on.
Now, here's what I think some of these Republicans are hoping for.
Well, here, let me stop for a second. We have an hour of radio time right now, and you're doing exactly what I'm criticizing Trump about. Instead of talking about, I got a whole pile of stuff here about how horrible Hillary is, trying to get people not to allow her to be president, and you want to keep going back to how the Republicans suck.
No.
It's non-productive, Steve.
Now, I wanted to talk about, do you think Hillary will move to the right?
I have no. Here's the deal: when Bill Clinton was in the office, the comments that came out of Arkansas was Bill didn't really believe in anything, and that's why you saw when he got in the White House such variances in policy, because it depended on what advisor got to Bill. Now, while that's morally not really something we should aspire to, at least with someone like Bill, he could triangulate. You know, when we took over Congress in 94, he triangulated, figured out where he needed to be, and he moved more to the center, even maybe slightly to the right on a few issues. Hillary, the story out of Arkansas was she was the ideologue. She was the left-wing ideologue. So I do think that she'll come and go wherever she needs to, just like she did, for example, on gay marriage. You know, her entire career has supported marriage between one man and one woman until about a year and a half ago. And now we've got emails out where they discussed where they needed to be. There wasn't any great, commitment there to the gay community. There was a triangulation of where does this politically advantageous to us. So I think she will do a lot of things that she thinks help her, because it's all about her and her power. But all in all, she's a liberal ideologue.
Well, Hillary's got a lot of problems, and how she even got as far as she's gotten, I don't know. Now then, let's talk about the left-wing liberal news. I don't know what the future for America is, the way the news gets.
Well, they're really to blame for this choice that we have. They packaged this and put it together. You know, for example, Martin O'Malley. Now, I don't like his policies. He was a failed mayor of Baltimore. He was somewhat a failed governor. But from all reports, he's a decent guy. Bernie Sanders, he's a failed socialist, but I think he's an honest socialist.
An honest socialist.
But they didn't put either one of those people up. They protected Hillary because they decided years ago that it was her turn.
Didn't the people vote for her, though?
Well, yeah, you vote for people when that's all you're given. I mean, think about that. There's all kinds of evidence here of corruption on her part, and they don't cover it. So the people don't really know it, or they minimize it and let it kind of slide under. I mean, right now, and that's, again, one of the reasons I'm faulting Trump for arguing and fussing about the Republicans. He needs to be hammering on how corrupt Hillary is.
Well, if the Republicans would quit talking about him, maybe they could.
Paul Ryan didn't talk about him.
He should have said anything.
He came out and said, I've got to protect my majority in Congress, is all he said.
He should have said anything.
Okay.
That was a derogatory towards Trump, the way he did it.
Well, gosh, I'm so sorry that Mr. Trump's skin is so thin that he can't let something like that slide.
No, it aggravated the crap out of me, too,
Well,
John.
You ought to let it slide, too.
No,
You ought
I
to
just
be able
let
to
it slide.
Then,
I don't think he ought to be there.
Then
I don't think he ought to be talking.
Then take solace in that when Hillary is the president and she has a Democrat Congress and a Democrat Senate. And when they change every aspect of your life, you can take solace in that.
There's two people I'm going to blame on this election if Hillary Clinton wins.
Mm-hmm.
You know who they are?
I'm sure I'm one of them.
No. The one you just talked about.
Paul Ryan.
Mm-hmm. And the other one is the one that ran for president last time and didn't make it.
Mitt?
Yeah, Mitt Romney.
Well, I agree with you. I don't like what Mitt Romney did at all.
I still don't like
all Paul Ryan did was come out and say, I've got to protect my majority in Congress.
Shouldn't have said it.
Okay.
But if you look at the...
He was taking sides.
He didn't take a side.
He took sides.
Steve, if we win 240 seats in Congress, what do you think that means towards a Trump election? If the Republican congressman carries a district,
win the presidency, you can't
you're missing
win
the
anything.
point. If you carry the congressional seat, it helps Trump. It probably means Trump wins. And if you all can't see the big picture and you allow yourself to go off on this tangent instead of focusing on what Hillary's doing wrong and how horrible she'll be for America, that's the death nail here. He's got to stay focused on Hillary.
Well, let me talk to you about something else. What about our buddy Al Gore?
Well, there's another failed government politician who's never really created anything, except, of course, when he got the government to give contracts to the green energy companies that he actually was an investor in. Yeah. That's the only way he's been a success.
And he's made a lot of money.
Huge amounts of
since
money.
He got out of office on green energy.
Well, and on selling hysteria, which is one of the things the left does, is it sells hysteria.
Now then, he was there was a long endorsement by him yesterday for Hillary. Speeches being made.
The story in the White House was
warming.
They hated each other.
Well, all I can say is Gore couldn't win Tennessee. He
didn't carry his own precinct, his home precinct.
Yeah. He didn't carry Tennessee, did he?
He didn't carry Tennessee. He didn't carry his actual home voting precinct. Now, keep in mind, that's a guy who had to hire a voice coach to give him a Southern accent when he ran in 2000. He actually hired a voice coach to make sure he had a Southern accent when he spoke, because he didn't grow up here. His daddy was the senator, and he lived in D.C., went to private schools in D.C., got a plum appointment to the Stars and Stripes newspaper when he was in Vietnam, and then his daddy pulled strings and got him pulled out of Vietnam before a full term was served.
I want to go back to Washington, D.C. Who's the insider in Washington?
Well, obviously Hillary's the insider.
Okay. So there's a nice elite little group up there that's just making sure they get everything the way they want it.
Well, the thing is, all the changes that I'm scared of and that you're scared of won't affect them. You know, when she talks about gun control, it won't affect her because she'll have armed guards around her. She'll have big, huge gates and walls and fences up. So she'll be safe.
She's not worried about Obama.
To hell with the rest of us.
She's not worried about Obama.
Now, here's the really horrible thing about a lot of this. For example, there's a story now that a police officer in Chicago was brutally beaten because she didn't want to pull her gun. This was her actual testimony. She said that she was afraid for her life and afraid to use lethal force with all the attention on the police department's previous actions and fatal incidents. So her sergeant said she didn't want her family or the department to have to go through the scrutiny the next day on the national news. So she allowed herself to be severely beaten. Now, the bad thing about the climate that Hillary and the progressives are creating is that they're going to end up getting a lot more violence and a lot more people shot, because people like me are going to look at that kind of story and we're going to sympathize with the police. I understand. And the police are going to pull back. They're not going to put themselves in the kind of risk that they're being put in to then be prosecuted for doing their job. And so the violence is going to escalate. When the violence escalates, more people like me and you are going to say, I'm not going to put up with this. And more people are going to get shot.
Right.
So she is creating a climate where we will decline into violence and chaos because she wants to manipulate this to gain power. And she'll be insulated from it. She'll live in her bubble and it won't affect her.
Well, I think that they try to get – I think the Democrats have raised racial tensions on purpose just to try to get votes.
In the debate Sunday night, if you listen, there was a gentleman got up and asked about healing race relations. And if you listen to her answer, and I wish Mr. Trump had come back with this, she said, I've always supported the black community, and one of the main things she mentioned is that from her early years, she had participated in minority voter registration drives. And right then was a perfect chance to say to that gentleman, Mr. Trump could have replied and said, the black community has higher unemployment now. They have higher poverty now. They have higher drug use now. They have higher illegitimate childbirth. They have higher crime rates. But guess what she focuses on? Registering you to vote. So the one thing that she can deliver on is making sure you get out to vote for her. Now, she can't deliver on any of these other things. Her and Barack Obama have made every aspect of life worse in the minority community. But by golly, they'll make sure you're registered to vote.
Yeah. Did you hear yesterday when she and Al Gore was having their little hula la? She made the announcement that global warming is one of the number one things that we need to be talking about.
Well, absolutely, because you can control more of the economy through that. You can come in and you can shut down industries that haven't given money to you.
That's
you
right.
You can create industries for your friends and buddies. You can control. All of this is about control, power and control.
She also made the comment General Motors is fixing to launch all these new battery cars.
Well, with taxpayer subsidies.
That's exactly right.
If it could fly on its own, it would fly on its own.
What's amazing to me, they get up there and they speak about all these programs that are successful now, but they don't talk about the taxpayers are paying for.
That's not success.
I know.
I mean, you think about Obamacare. Obamacare is a disaster, and now their solution is we want to go to single payer. And it just frustrates the daylights out of me that more people don't look at that and go, now let me see if I got this straight. All of these people on this insurance program made the insurance company lose money. The insurance company lost money. So you got all these people and their care is too expensive and the program loses money. So your solution is to move all of these people to the government. That doesn't change the fact that it's going to lose money. You've just shifted the loss from the company to the taxpayer.
Well, I think the only way they can justify that is when they shift everybody to the government, more people's going to die.
Yeah, but here's
that way we won't have to pay for it.
That's a secondary issue, but here's my point. Why isn't anybody going, fix the problem? If you could fix the problem to where it didn't lose money.
All right, let's talk about that. What would you do to fix the problem?
Well, first off, you have to get rid of the lines around the state, and Mr. Trump talked about that.
That's right.
And Republicans have talked about that for years.
So an insurance company in New York
can't sell a policy in Tennessee.
That's right.
So Blue Cross Blue Shield of Ohio, let's say they've got a better plan than Blue Cross Blue Shield of Tennessee. As a resident of Tennessee, I can't buy the plan in Ohio. And so Tennessee more or less has a monopoly on that.
All right.
And so I have to buy the more expensive plan.
Well, let's go a little further with fixing the healthcare system. I saw the other day an advertisement on an MRI, and it was a hospital somewhere or a clinic somewhere that was advertising one for $1,500,
right.
And if you're paying cash, $800.
Right. Actually, in Chattanooga, we talked about this. I've never liked the certificate of need system that we have. So a hospital wants to put a new MRI in. They have to fill out all these papers, and it's called certificate of need. They have to send it to Nashville, and the state has to approve whether you can put an MRI in or not.
Right.
That's against everything free market values that we talk about.
Right.
Because from my standpoint, if the company wants to put a new MRI in, let them. If you get too many MRIs, guess what will happen? The price of MRIs will come down. That's how the market works. But this idea that government, that's where this all boils down to. Hillary and the social progressives, they believe in a managed society. They believe in a controlled society. Conservatives believe in a free market society. We think the market makes these decisions. Now, the problem is the market goes up and it goes down. And so what the Democrats and the progressives do is whenever the market is down, they go, oh, this is horrible, this is horrible, we need to let the government take care of this. The problem is they don't say that when the market's up. You know, the stock market comes and goes over the years, up and down, but since 1929, consistently, it's earned about 9% over the years. Social Security earns less than 2% over the years. So even though you've had ups and you've had downs in the stock market, if you leave the stock market alone, on average, it averages out about 9%.
Let's take a break. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Backfire with Steve Hickson. We'll be right back after this.
You are listening to WOOP-LP, Cleveland, Tennessee. WOOP FM is a broadcasting service of the Traditional Music Resource Center, and we play America's original music.
It's 5:18 in the morning. We're having to listen to and come on, give us a break.
Check into cash. The cash you need today is waiting for you at Check into Cash. It's your money, so come in and get it.
Get a payday advance today for up to $425. At Check into Cash, we make it quick, easy, and confidential.
The cash you need is right here, so stop worrying and stop in to Check into Cash today.
Borrowers often use payday advances over a period of months, which can be expensive. Restrictions apply. See store for details.
Tired of standing in line to cash your paycheck? Go to usmoneycard.com. Company doesn't provide direct deposit? Visit usmoneycard.com. The smart and safe alternative to carrying cash. Will provide direct deposit for your prepaid debit card, or you can deposit cash anytime. Your US Money Card is reloadable and can be used wherever MasterCard is accepted. You never have to worry about overdraft fees. Spend what you deposit. So log on, load up, and love your US Money Card, the safe and smart way to spend. Visit usmoneycard.com for complete details.
If you need a little green, Lending Frog is making deals. He'll lend you cash on any kind of wheels. Borrow just a little, or you can borrow big. Lending Frog is a new financial gig. It's hip to hop into cash. LendingFrog.com is making a splash. Dig it, dig it. Dig it, dig it.
Hello, my name is Andy Figelstaller with Ed Jacobs & Associates. We are an employee benefit and insurance broker in business for the past 20 years. The new healthcare law, also known as Obamacare, has finally arrived. The law is complex and the choices are confusing. You have questions, we have the answers. It is our passion to find cost-effective solutions for every client. The solutions will be different for every person or business. Let our knowledge, experience, and passion go to work for you. Contact us today and let us assist you through this process. Our phone number is 423-473-0202, or you can find us on the web at edjacobs.com.
At Buy Here, Pay Here USA, we don't just sell cars, we buy them. Bring your car, truck, or SUV down to Buy Here, Pay Here USA, and we'll give you a free appraisal with no obligation. We pay top dollar for most cars, so before you trade in your vehicle, come see us for an appraisal. At Buy Here, Pay Here USA, we pay the most for your car. Visit Buy Here, Pay Here USA in Cleveland, Dayton, or Chattanooga, or go to buyheresellhere.com. That's buyheresellhere.com. Restrictions apply. See store for details.
Train engineers put our heating and cooling products for almost every test imaginable. So while you're sending your kids to school, they're sending 10,000 volts through a compressor. Testing like this is the reason Train is so reliable, and why our engineers prefer their steaks. Well done.
Ready to indulge in Train comfort? Call the Train Comfort Specialist at Mechanical Systems, 336-5739. High-quality service and installation for more than 30 years.
It's hard to stop a train. Really hard.
No dealers allowed.
Jackson Catnapper, family owned and operated in Cleveland since 1933, offering the best with over 70 styles of recliners, sofas, electronic lift chairs, full living room packages. Call Mike now at 961-7239 because Jackson Catnapper now offers sales to the public
every Saturday. That's right, every Saturday.
From 8 in the morning to 1 in the afternoon. Or call Mike at 961-7239. Or go see him
every Saturday
at 1911 King Edward Avenue, just across from the main plant. Jackson Catnapper, family owned and operated in Cleveland since 1933. 961-7239.
No dealers allowed.
Come join us at the Bald-Headed Bistro for Cleveland's fastest growing dinner event. Join us every month for our supper club presented by Chef Eric Fulkerson. Spots are limited, so reserve yours in advance. We can't wait to see you here.
You're listening to Backfire with Steve Hickson on Whoop FM. Call 423-614-5553 to join in on the conversation. Now, back to Backfire.
All right, John, we're back live in the studio. Franklin Chancey is absent today. He had to have a morning off, I think. So it's John Stanberry, myself, and Daniel Brantley, our chief engineer. Whoop. Let's talk about voter fraud then.
Well, apparently the Obama administration is okay with it. They're bringing, we've got reports from the southern border that these are from Homeland Security people, from Border Patrol agents, that they are fast tracking people through down there and getting them registered to vote. And Franklin will say, "Oh, this doesn't happen." Well, we've proven it happens. It's happening in Virginia regularly, and it's targeted in swing states. I'll give you, and this is a single example, but it really ought to make people furious. The mall shooter in Washington State who went and shot up the mall and tried to kill people, once again, they kind of covered up the fact that he was an Islamic terrorist. Guess what? He's voted in the last 3 elections. He's not a U.S. citizen. Not a U.S. citizen, but he voted in the last 3 elections.
But there's no voter fraud.
Of course not. In Washington State, when they ask them about it, they don't require any proof of citizenship to register to vote. They said, now this is the actual answer. Now keep in mind, Washington State's a democratically controlled state. They said, we rely on the honesty of the applicant.
What is the issues with voter registration? They just think old people can't get to the polls?
No, that's a red herring. They just use that as an excuse. What it is they want these polling stations as open and free as they can get, so that they can take advantage of it. I mean, we know for a fact that JFK probably stole enough votes in the city of Chicago to put himself in the office. They now know that he probably didn't win the presidency because enough votes were stolen in Chicago to swing Illinois. I mean, we know that.
Isn't that amazing?
And yet,
and yet we don't do anything about it.
Right. Now, people, what's bad is people go, well, JFK was a great maybe he was. I don't know. But do you believe in honesty? Do you believe in the rule of law or not? I don't want a Republican in office if he stole it.
Yeah. What about WikiLeaks?
Well, that's another interesting one. It's kind of funny to watch the Hillary people. What they're doing is basically the Animal House defense. I mean, think about it. We're not going to stand here while you bad mouth the United States of America. So that's their defense. It's the Animal House defense.
We're not going to stand here.
Well, I mean, think about it. They're not denying that they're the actual emails. They're deflecting and going, Russia hacked it. Well, who cares where I mean, fine, that's a separate issue. You want to discuss Russia hacking, you want to discuss them releasing it, trying to affect the election, fine. But that has nothing to do with what the emails show. And Hillary and them aren't even denying that the emails are correct.
You think President Obama will pardon Edward Snowden before he goes out of office?
I don't know. It depends on how much they hurt Hillary. May not if he's made them mad. I don't know who these are coming from. And here's another thing. You think about this. We're obsessing about something that Donald Trump said 11 years ago. And to be perfectly honest, it was pretty vulgar. But I'm a guy, and I've been in rough, rowdy situations, and I'm sure I've said things I shouldn't have said. I'm sure, lots of women have probably said things they shouldn't have said. And the idea that private conversations come out like that, I'm not real happy about that either, this idea that there is no privacy in America anymore. But having said all of that, we're obsessing about what he said, but we're not dealing at all with what has actually gone on in these emails with Hillary Clinton. I mean, we've got the White House coordinating with her campaign. We've got the State Department coordinating with her campaign. We've got proof that the State Department under her gave favors to her friends, and yet none of that is being covered. We're talking about one lewd comment that Donald Trump made years ago.
We even got some foundation hacking coming out now.
Oh, absolutely. But this State Department one, I don't know if you're not familiar with what. Now, this came out just yesterday. Now, this is an actual email. This is from Caitlin Klavorek, who was then a senior State Department official who was working on assistance being funneled to the State Department by the Clinton Foundation when the Haitian disaster happened. This is what she said. Need you to flag when people are friends of WJC, William Jefferson Clinton. Most I can probably ID, but not all. And then one name got sent to her, and she said, is this a FOB, friend of Bill? If not, she should go to city.org. Now, that's a general government website. That right there, that email, is absolute proof of a quid pro quo. If you donated money to the Clinton Foundation, to their personal foundation that they actually get paid out of, and that their daughter gets paid out of, and that they fly around the world on the jets that the Clinton Foundation owns. If you donated money to them, you got fast-tracked into contracts for the Haitian people. Now think about that. On top of all that, as horrible as that is in and of itself, this was a charity. This was a national disaster, a worldwide disaster, and yet they were still making sure that the Clintons' nest got feathered. This is absolute proof of a quid pro quo. Is anybody talking about this?
John, how are we supposed to survive as a nation with this much corruption?
I'm not sure we do. I mean, there's a lot of corruption.
Absolutely. On the Democratic side.
I can tell you, and
now then, if Franklin was here, he'd say, oh, it's on the Republican side,
well,
too.
It is some on the Republican side. I don't disagree. But it's I'm a Republican, so I think it's less on the Republican side.
And that's why I think we need to go right down the middle.
I would say that there's always been this much corruption. We just have ways of finding out about it now.
Well, the problem is the power of the corruption has grown exponentially, and the big problem really is the press. The press used to view their role as they're supposed to root out this kind of corruption. Well, for example, that email that I just read you, why is that not plastered on every newspaper's front page across the country today? Because that is absolute proof that a person running for the President of the United States sold the State Department for their own personal gain. And by the way, a week or so ago, Mr. Trump's tax information was printed on the front page of the New York Times. Now, this is the same New York Times that wouldn't print the ClimateGate emails, the emails where it showed that the liberal scientists were actually manipulating the scientific data. Right. They refused to print that because they said, we don't know how this was obtained and whether it was legally obtained.
Towards global warming.
Right. But they printed Trump's tax information. But here's the point. Where was his tax information kept? Where did that have to come from?
Not really.
It either came from the IRS or it came from Trump's business. So someone stole that either from the government or they stole it from Mr. Trump. That's a crime in and of itself. So why aren't we talking about that? And ask yourself this. What was Watergate? Steve, you remember. What was Watergate?
It wasn't much compared
what
to
was the actual crime of Watergate?
Today, it's actually nothing. It was somebody breaking into an office.
Think about what did I just say? Where did his tax information come from?
Right.
Someone broke into either the IRS or they broke into Trump's office. Right. Watergate was breaking into Daniel Ellsberg's, into a psychiatrist's office to get embarrassing information on the vice president candidate. That's what Watergate was. This is exactly the same. Exactly the same. Why isn't the New York Times asking who got this information? Who broke into the Trump Towers? Who broke into the IRS?
It's pretty amazing to me how liberal our media is now. I mean,
it's not that they're liberal, it's that they're hypocritical. They don't care as long as they're well, John Harwood, who was one of the moderators of one of the early debates. We now have hacked emails where he was sending emails back and forth to the Clinton campaign, where he bragged about how he was able to get Trump angry and upset and agitated. He also sent an email telling them, now this is an actual email, watch out, Ben Carson could give you real trouble in a general. And he attached news clips to that email of Carson in an interview that he had done with him. So here's a guy who claims to be a serious journalist, not an opinion journalist. He's also was a moderator of one of the presidential debates. We now know that he was working directly with the Clinton campaign to make sure she was protected and Donald Trump was sabotaged. Where's he? Has he been fired?
Well, is Trump right on what he said?
About what?
It's a rigged system.
It is a rigged system. I agree.
The system is rigged.
I agree.
Vote Trump.
Well, you better vote Trump or you're not going to have a country.
This is our last chance to have a system that's not rigged, I think.
Well, the problem is you're close to a tipping point in the country where you're not gonna survive if we don't take some of our country back. And a lot of this is the public's fault, because they look at this, they go, oh, it doesn't matter. And that's the only downside to the rigged system argument. It has a tendency to discourage people. Sometimes they go, oh, it's a rigged system, it doesn't matter. It does matter. We still have a chance to save this country, but I'm not sure we're going to do it.
You know, what aggravates me more than anything is interest rates right now. Why are they low?
Well, because they rigged the financial system. That's the Fed.
That's right.
Which that was Ron Paul's point.
Now then, how much would it add to our national debt if it went up 1 percentage point?
It would add a lot.
How much? They can't raise it.
Well, it would also employment would go down. Lots of things would happen. They have done this.
They can't raise it. Now then, who's that taking money from? They're spending money that people have saved, that they want to invest and try to get 3 or 4 or 5% on it. They've stolen that money.
Absolutely. Because they wanted to protect the Obama administration.
And I'll tell you something. If you want to help our economy, let people that work hard all their lives and save their money and so forth be able to earn a little something for their money in their golden years. But now they've got it where you can't even do that. It's amazing to me. It's amazing to me how messed up this system is, and we don't do anything to correct it. Please go vote Trump.
Well, do you know who Ben Rhodes is? Ben Rhodes is President Obama's Deputy National Security Advisor for Strategic Communications. Okay?
Yeah.
Do you know who Rhodes' brother is?
Who?
It's David Rhodes. You know what he does for a living?
Who?
He's the president of CBS News. Now, we've got emails showing that he actually intervened in some of the controversy to make sure that John Kerry wasn't asked about the email scandals. And that was going on between Jen Psaki and Jen Palmieri, both of who were spokesmen for the White House and for the State Department, who now work for the Clinton campaign. One of them does.
I want to go back just a little bit, in a few weeks. Do you think the U.S. government mistakenly granted citizenship to 858 immigrants, or did it purposely?
I think it did it on purpose. We know, matter of fact, there were some of these emails that were leaked the other day also show that in 2008, when I think Podesta, who is Clinton's campaign manager and was at that time they were fighting Obama, they basically said that Obama's people were participating in voter fraud. They had I think it was in Colorado, they had evidence that they were registering people and voting people that shouldn't be voting. And by the way, there's actually one discussion of women in burqas voting. You've got a New York official on tape. I didn't actually bring the story, but you can look it up. It's another one of the hidden camera tapes that the same boy that did the Planned Parenthood and all did, where this guy says, oh yeah, he said, we bust them around from precinct to precinct. And then he mentions in it about wearing a burqa, because with a burqa, you can't ask them to see their face. You can't ask them to take the burqa off, the covering over their face.
Isn't that amazing?
So you can go in and vote however you want to, whoever you want to. That's on tape. You can look that up. I think, O'Keefe, James O'Keefe. It's a new video he put out.
All right. Let's talk about Trump just a minute. Is Trump going to be able to take Florida?
I don't know. Florida's a tough, state. It's had a lot of demographic changes that have been bad for us, but also a lot that have been good for us. They've had a large influx of Hispanic immigrants from Puerto Rico. The Puerto Rican immigrants tend to trend more Democratic. The Cuban immigrants historically have trended to the Republicans. However, the younger generation of Cubans aren't as adamant about that because they're further away from their parents' experiences with Castro and the communist dictatorship down there. But on top of all of that, you've had a lot of Northerners who have retired to Florida, and they tend to be a little bit more conservative. So it's hard to know how that's going to shake out. It also has a lot to do with turnout and how ginned up the base is.
Well, Hillary held her speech down there with Al Gore yesterday in Florida, and she kept talking about global warming affecting Miami, how it's affecting the beach, and how, there's seawater coming up through the sewer.
Oh, I know. Well, here's the only other problem, though. Mr. Trump has not spent any money putting much of an organization together. And there's some evidence coming out now that the Democrats are already banking votes. They've been hauling people, and this early voting's already started in a lot of areas.
Yeah.
And they've been hauling people, and they haul people, they haul handicapped people, mentally handicapped people. We've done that, incurred that here locally, where people are brought in and the bus driver goes in and helps them vote. Well, that's in my opinion, wholly inappropriate.
All right.
It ought to be a family member, because I think that is ripe for taking advantage of someone. You have a non-family member, really probably a non-even acquaintance who goes in and says, I need to help this person vote. I got in an argument, it's been several years ago, with some of the election commission people before the Republicans took over, where they said, oh, well, the voter can request help. And I said, you're right, the voter can request help. But in a lot of these cases, the person bringing them in says, I have to help them. And the argument back was, well, that's the same thing. I said, no, it's not the same thing. For a bus driver to say, I have to help this person is completely different from the person saying, I need help and I want it to be this bus driver. And so we had a pretty good little argument over that. Now, I don't think that's going on now, but it goes on all over the country like that.
When does early voting start here?
It should start in the next week or so, I think. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure.
It's already started.
Some areas it's already started.
What's the longest, earliest voting?
Well, we got into lawsuits on that. In Ohio, for example, they were trying to shave, and I think North Carolina as well, they were trying to shave 1 week off of early voting because they said it was complicated to get it all shut down and get those votes tabulated. The Democrats went to court, the Democrat attorney generals went to court and said, you're violating people's ability to vote. And that's another interesting thing. When they go into these arguments and they said, oh, poor people can't get go ahead.
We got a call coming in. Let's go ahead and take the call. Go ahead, caller. You're live.
Hey, how you doing?
Is this Jeff?
This is Jeff.
Hello, Mr. Garber. How are you?
I was even better. I'd be you, Mr. Hickson.
One of our county commissioners calling in this morning. I know you called in for a purpose. Let's hear what it is.
Well, what are y'all talking about today?
We've talked about everything, but we haven't talked about your constable problem.
I don't have a constable problem. Constable has a problem.
What's going on with that?
Yeah, well, it's in the headlines. It's all over the newspaper now. It sounds like it's probably just one or two little problems we've got that's made something major out of it. But constables are threatening people?
A constable.
Oh, one. But nobody's mentioning any name.
Well, I think it's pretty. It's not the constable of the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, or 7th district.
I got to go do my homework now. What is the problem? They're not making enough money. They want to make more money. They got to serve more.
Well, what the accusation, what he says is, what he and 2 other constables say is the sheriff has 2 civil process servers, and that's cutting into their papers. But then when Galen Miller brought the numbers in, the constables had been paid out $170-something thousand last year, and the sheriff's office had been paid $23,000 out of her office. So the sheriff's office wasn't cutting into a whole lot of what they were doing. The sheriff also opened up and allowed the constables to begin to serve writs, which he hadn't done before, which would help offset some of the cost of what his two process servers were doing. Now, keep in mind, you have 4 constables, Wayne Henry, Steve Anderson, Brent Runyon, and Jason Corum, who say things are great, things are awesome. They like the way they are. There's no issue.
What form do these threats take?
What's that?
What are they threatening to do?
Well, what Bobby Goins has said was that this constable told him that he 5 people were going to run against Bobby and I down here in the 5th District, and that he had dug up some dirt on Bobby, and if Bobby didn't vote the way he wanted him to, he was going to release this dirt on him.
Oh, political blackmail, huh?
That's what I said. I said the Tennessee go down and tell you, because that's blackmail.
Yeah. Well, Jeff, why are you and Bobby being singled out?
I'm not being, well, I'm being, I don't know why Bobby's being singled out as far as the threat goes, as far as the dirt. I don't know why he chose Bobby. And, what I said, John, was, they've been trying to beat me for 15 years. If you're going to get 5 out against us, get 10 out against me. I don't care. So I don't know why he chose to single Bobby out unless he thought maybe he could, Bobby was pretty new in politics and that he could intimidate him, which he didn't. Bobby's been around a long time, so.
Right. Does Bobby have any history in the boxing ring?
No, but one commissioner does.
Yeah, that may be why they didn't go for that one commissioner.
I don't know. But, it's a sad day when an elected official, especially somebody who's in law enforcement like that, doesn't know the laws well enough to know.
So what did Gala have to say on this?
Gala's pretty mad. Gala said that this same constable has come up and threatened her clerks and video recorded her clerks and just caused her office chaos. And she's had to go to the point that now, because what happens is, if Franklin's there, he knows attorneys can, when they do papers, when they file papers on and stuff, they can ask for who they want to start the process papers. And
well, that's called freedom, isn't it?
yeah, and Gator said her office has come to the point that she has to, when somebody comes there to get a paper, they say, well, I want this constable to serve, or I don't want this constable to serve it. She has to get them to sign stuff saying, hey, this isn't the clerk's office, this is me, I want this personally, just to protect her workers.
Wow. That's
How many constables do we have?
7.
We have 7.
7.
1 for each district.
So the constables are supposed to be able to serve papers in their districts?
No, they can serve them all over the county.
What if it was limited to their districts?
Well, you can't do that because you don't have to be a constable to serve. You Steve, can go up there and get the paperwork filed and serve papers.
And a constable, people don't understand, constable is second only to the sheriff in the county and law enforcement authority.
Yeah, and constables they go out and solicit their own business too. A lot of your constables make their money. They work straight for attorneys, straight for collection agencies. So it's not just serving papers through the courts, through the courthouse or through Taylor's office. A lot of their money is made by soliciting through other entities. They're a private contractor. They're 1099 employees.
Okay.
That's where all this started from. It's because a couple of Dwayne, Gary Moore, and Dickie Alford wanted us to buy their radios for them.
Why would the county need to buy their radios?
They were upset because the sheriff went to an 800 megahertz system, and they're having to they bought radios. They're having to buy new radios. Now, the 4 constables, again, Steve Anderson, Brent Runyon, Jason Coyle, and Wayne Henry, said, hey, we bought our radios. We're good. Part of being a constable is it doesn't cost the county anything. We don't want you to buy anything for us.
Well, I noticed a lot of these constables, some of them are making $49,000, some of them are making 30-something thousand, and then I see a few of them making $1,800, $1,900.
Depends on how hard you want to work.
That's right.
That's what the other 4 constables say. If you want to work, the money's there.
Yeah, just a freelance job. You just got to get on it.
Yeah.
Well, where does it go from here, Jeff?
Well, there's a vote next week on the commission. Robert Rominger has a resolution to buy them the radios. I don't see it passing. If I'm any good at counting votes, I see possibly 3 votes for it.
Has that ever happened before? Has the commission ever paid for their radios?
No.
And they buy their own uniforms also, as well.
Everything.
And has the sheriff ever updated their equipment before where the constables have been required to buy new stuff?
I'm sure, I don't know the answer to that, Daniel. I'm sure that they've had an update. It's been years probably in the radio system.
But Jeff, as I remember it from years ago, for a long time we only had one constable that really had a marked car and a uniform and all. Aren't they by statute required to have certain equipment?
By statute, I don't know if they're required to, in order to perform their duty, they need to. So I don't know what the statute on that is, John, but what you have now, a lot of other constables have decided to look the position, to have a car, have a uniform in the car, have their uniforms. That's why you're seeing more cars on the road now, because Steve Anderson and those guys have said we want to look the part.
Yeah.
All right, I got to change the subject. I don't think we're ever going to get anything resolved there. How's the election going to suit you?
How's the election going to suit me?
Presidential.
Well, I mean, if the Clinton News Network would, it's what you expect. I mean, it's mudslinging. I mean, it's dirty politics. It's the media skewing things to their benefit. I mean, it's what you expect. So I would expect nothing less. All
right, John, you got anything for him?
No, I've got one thing before we go I want to get out to people.
All right. Go ahead. Hey, you still there, Jeff?
I am.
All right, go ahead, John.
Well, folks, we talk about how important this election is, and one of the things at the last debate, Hillary Clinton talked about how important the Supreme Court was. Now, keep in mind, this is a woman who basically told you she had litmus tests. Traditionally, we've said the court shouldn't be subject to litmus tests. We should appoint competent jurists who will do a fair job. Well, she's actually saying on this issue, and this issue, I'm going to appoint people that will do what I want. But I just want to read you from an op-ed that Richard Posner wrote. Now, he is a judge in the U.S. Court of Appeals for the 7th Circuit, and he's a senior lecturer at the University of Chicago Law School. This is what he said. He said he sees absolutely no value in studying the Constitution because 18th century guys, however smart, could not foresee the culture, technology, etc. of the 21st century. He even says the Bill of Rights does not speak to us today. Now you think about that. That means freedom of speech, assembly, the press, religion, no warrantless searches are outdated concepts according to him. He sees absolutely no value to a judge spending decades, years, months, weeks, days, hours, minutes, or seconds studying the Constitution, the history of its enactment, its amendments, and its implementations. So that's the kind of person that you're going to get on the Supreme Court. And he actually said that he worries that law professors are too respectful of the Supreme Court, and that they just don't want to spoil their students' chances of getting clerkships. So you have, now keep in mind, he's an federal appellate court judge, and says basically there's no value to the United States Constitution. Now add on top of that Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who said that she thinks other constitutions in the world are actually better than ours. That's what's at stake in this election. If Hillary Clinton is elected, I'm not sure we recover from that. And so, Franklin and I got into it a week or so ago. This is a binary decision. You can claim whatever you want, but if you vote for Jill Stein, if you vote for Gary Johnson, you are voting for Hillary Clinton. If you don't want to lose law and order, you don't want to lose our country, you got to go out and vote for not only Donald Trump, but you have to vote for a Congress and a Senate who will keep, if Donald's not able to win, you've got to have a Republican House and a Republican Senate to keep these liberal progressives in check.
Jeff, do you have any retort to that as our Democrat for this episode?
That just got awkward, didn't it? I agree with what John's saying. I mean, when you vote for the president, many times you're not voting for that individual per se because they do have limited powers according to the way the Constitution is written, but you are voting for who they put it on the Supreme Court. You know, you can change the president every 4 to 8 years. The Supreme Court's a lifetime appointment. And so you need to make sure that you know their ideology on the Supreme Court.
All right. Well, the only thing I can say here is I hadn't had to ring the bell because Franklin's not here.
I should have rang it when you and John were going at it.
But I also want to play a song in honor of Franklin not being here today as we leave. Thank you for calling in, Jeff. We're at the end of our schedule, John. See you next week. This song is for you, Franklin. Bye-bye.
Well, without further ado, Brian Lewis, the world premiere, no pressure, no pressure, of I Think My Dog's a Democrat.
Here we go. Well, I think my dog's a Democrat. And it breaks my heart to have to say an ugly thing like that. But there's a big old pile of evidence that all points towards the fact